Your Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present before you today. My name is Sneha Pillai. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor with the Aged Care Association. Our association represents nearly 100% of New Zealand's aged residential care sector. Our sector provides care services to older New Zealanders, some of whom are living with disability, and also for over 700 younger persons with disability as well. At the outset, we support one of the core objectives of the bill, which is to have a legislative framework for the disability support system. But good intentions require good architecture. And speaking from the age residential care perspective, we have identified 3 structural gaps that we urge the committee to address. Gap 1, there's a lack of recognition that disability needs do not end when someone enters age residential care. For instance, when a person who's been living in the community with a disability enters aged care, they find that their access to supported living is curtailed overnight. So for someone without family, they are suddenly without the community connections that supported living provided. When disability funding doesn't travel with the person, providers are left to absorb needs the system was not designed to meet. The bill's Clause 8's direction to use other publicly funded sources before DSS funding is accessed, risk making gaps like these permanent in law. Gap 2, there's a lack of national consistency when it comes for younger persons with disability. We acknowledge that age residential care is not always the ideal setting for younger people. But many young people with disability do rely on these services, and that's because they have no other alternative. And so aged care remains an important part of New Zealand's disability support system. On entering aged care, young people often question the appropriateness of the settings for themselves. And the aged care providers, whose care and funding model are primarily structured to cater to older residents with complex age-related clinical needs, find it challenging to meet the needs of the young people. And this is a reflection of the current funding and contractual arrangement for young people with disabilities living in aged care, which are fragmented, inconsistent, and open to local interpretations. Now, we note that Clause 11.3 allows the minister to set funding criteria based on several criteria, which include nature of a person's disability and their age. However, we submit that there should be a space to consider these criteria together. For instance, if disability and age is considered together, that particularly for funding, it would also help aged care providers cater to the needs of those who experience age-related disability needs as well. And we also recommend a single national funding framework negotiated with our association as the peak body for younger people with disabilities living in aged care. This would provide consistent eligibility, clear agency responsibilities, and an appropriate funding model that meet their distinct needs. And finally, as some submitters have already said this before us, consultation must be statutory and not optional. The bill delegates enormous powers to future ministerial programs and secondary legislation. This removes any statutory requirements for a minister to consult with providers or disabled people before those programs are made. We recommend a mandatory consultation requirement before significant secondary instruments are finalized. At minimum, we ask for consultation with disabled people and their whānau, with representative provider organizations, and publication of impact analysis where service continuity is at risk. Now, last week, I spoke with a woman who has been living in an aged care facility for the last 5 years, funded under the Younger Persons with Disability contract. She's been a lifelong disability advocate. She's fierce, informed, and has years of lived experience. And she had no shortage of anecdotes which speak to the policy gaps that basically make it harder for disabled people to access the supports that they need to live a full life. Under the bill as currently drafted, she would never get the chance to share her informed opinion, to have policies that are designed to serve her needs as well as the needs of the wider disabled community. Without consultation requirements, policymakers would never hear what she has to say. And the gap between need and provision would not just remain, it would grow. So to conclude, we ask for 3 things: protect disability supports across care settings, strengthen the consultation requirements to design policies that actually work for the people it's targeted to serve, and build a national framework for young people with disabilities in aged care. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and making a submission this afternoon, and thank you for your written submission as well.
Thank you.